Tom Pelissero is here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's bring in Tommy P. We'll get the pleasantries out of the way. What's up, Tom? How are you, sir? Good to see you.
What's up, Rich? What's up to my boys in the studio?
Hey, Tommy. Let's go.
What up, G?
I will be there in person with you 1 week from today.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
That is right.
Hey,
you
Rich.
will indeed. I'll be in London for a couple of them.
Can't wait.
Oh, I can't believe you're recording this, TJ.
Hey, Chris. Hey,
It's
Jay.
like the video. It's like the video of those players coming off the plane at the Super Bowl. When the hell did they ever watch that back? Oh, here I am walking off the Super Bowl, taking a shot of a tarmac.
Tom reposts this on his Instagram.
I
all the time.
covered one of those.
It was for 24 hours.
Back when we were Rich at NFL Network on Sunday night, and the teams would fly in, and it was like the red
P is
carpet
here.
Oscars arrival, and literally it was like an hour and a half of me just watching people walk by and yelling out their names. And the funny part was I was calling out like random front office people who then text me after and be like, "That was awesome, my kids were watching." It's like, I'm glad I could shout out the assistant cap guy for one of these teams and get this moment to the sun.
Tom Pelissero. Tommy P is here, everybody, here on the Rich Eisen Show. We're back on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. Okay, I looked down during my commercial break at my fantasy team, as one would, and I saw the word out next to Bucky Irving.
No.
Is that a fact?
He has officially been ruled out now. Todd Bowles said that after practice. Not a surprise. He was in a walking boot for that foot injury through the early portion of the week. Bowles didn't completely shut it down, but he said he'd have to be out of the boot today to have a shot. Usually when that's the case, plus you're flying all the way across the country to Seattle, I don't know if that's a 5-6 hour flight, that can cause issues if you're still in a boot just because of the swelling and things. So not a surprise. We'll see if Bucky Irving can go next week. But for this game against a really salty Seahawks defense, Rashad White is going to get, it seems like, a big part of the load here.
Okay, and then Sean Tucker would be the backup in that regard. So you might get more run, literally, figuratively, from him. What's the scoop with Lamar Jackson, Tom?
He's not on the practice field. They're out there right now for the Ravens. Certainly seems like they'll announce it in a few hours, but I anticipate that he's ruled out. You never know with Lamar, just because he's a little different character. There are a lot of examples over the course of time where he's not out there Wednesday, Thursday, and you're going, well, this guy's not starting. And all of a sudden Friday he shows up and ends up playing in the game and playing well. But all the signs were pointing, Rich, toward this being the outcome for this week. You're talking about a hamstring injury that happened in the third quarter last week. For everybody out there saying, oh, he just didn't want to play anymore, they pulled him out. John Harbaugh said there was no way he could go back into the game. When you hear that about a hamstring, that's not like a little twinge. That's something significant enough that if you were to roll him out 7 days later, you'd run the risk of potentially suffering a setback that could have Lamar Jackson hobbled or out for the long haul here. So take a look at the schedule. They got the Texans this week. I believe they have the Rams next week.
Yes.
Then they've got a week 7 bye. The prudent way to go about this would be hold Lamar Jackson out of both these games prior to the bye, give him almost a full month to recover from the hamstring injury, and then have him ready. Like, I know that the Ravens, they need a win here, but they need a healthy Lamar Jackson for the long haul even more. This is why they went out and they spent some money on the backup quarterback position, which they really hadn't done in the past. They had drafted guys here and there. They'd kind of cycled through the Snoop Huntleys of the world, but they gave Cooper Rush 2 years, and I think it was $6.2 million with upside, because they felt like they needed, hey, if something happens to Lamar, we want a guy who's proven within the league that can go out and win a game. Cooper Rush's play style could not be more different than Lamar Jackson's play style, but Lamar also has developed as a pocket passer over the course of time. So it's going to be on Cooper Rush to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers, at least offensively. Those guys are available right now, and they might have to put up some points in this game, because if you look at what's going on, Rich, defensively for the Ravens, Nnamdi Madubuike is out for the season. You're going to have no Marlon Humphrey, no Roquan Smith this week. Neither of those guys has practiced. Kyle Hamilton hurt his groin in practice Wednesday, hasn't practiced the past couple of days. I know Nate Wiggins was banged up. Chidobe Awuzie was not out there today. I mean, they are playing with, I hate to call it a JV type of defense, but you're talking about 5 Pro Bowl type players who are not going to be out there this week, and we'll see whether or not a Texans offense that, at least in the fourth quarter last week against Tennessee, showed some signs of life, if they can get after these guys and try to, force Cooper Rush and that offense without Lamar to put up some points on Sunday.
I don't know. Maybe the theme of the week could be the banged-up teams you don't expect to have much of a chance to go ahead and win, as we saw on Thursday night with Mac Jones becoming a 3-0 backup quarterback for the now 4-1, having won 2 of 3 division games already on the road at Seattle and at the Rams, San Francisco 49ers. That's what we saw on Thursday night. Now, TJ even mentioned in the first block that what happens when the other guys get back, they're only going to be better. What can you tell me about the other guys now that we're through 5 weeks? Kittle's IR stint could be over. There's Ayuk maybe around the corner, and then the other guys that are hurt. What can you tell me about the Niners, who now look terrific and positioned?
Well, in the early portion of the week, it sounded like Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pierce all at least had a shot to play on Thursday, which would indicate that those are probably not long-term injuries for them. With Brock Purdy, he obviously aggravated that injury on the bottom of his toe and just wasn't able to make it back. We'll see if he's able to get back next week, but no IR in that case. It's not long-term for Brock Purdy either. Kittle, you're right. I know the optimism was that once he went on IR that he'd get back pretty closely after that IR stint is up. Brandon Ayuk remains a bit of a mystery because even through the offseason, that was a significant injury. That just wasn't just your regular old ACL 8 to 9 month recovery. It was going to be a long haul for Brandon Ayuk. It doesn't sound like he's close at this point. Maybe sometime in November, potentially you could get him back. And then obviously you got a bunch of guys like Nick Bosa that are not going to be back this season. I mean, it's a credit to Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh to go out last night, because for Kyle, with a backup quarterback in Mac Jones, who's playing like the guy that a lot of people thought was going to be the number 3 overall pick back in 2021 to San Francisco, he's shown exactly why Kyle really liked him through the pre-draft process. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for, at least when that brace isn't digging into his knee and calf and causing the types of issues that he was having last night, where it looked like he was doubled over about to lose his dinner on the sideline there. He's played at a really, really high level here. And that's, Kyle's gotten him ready. He's thrown to a bunch of guys. I mean, think about who he's throwing to last night, Rich. Beyond Christian McCaffrey, who's doing most of his damage through the air, Demarcus Robinson was suspended at the start of the season. Sky Moore wasn't on the roster. Kendrick Bourne was not on the roster. And Marcos Valdes-Scantling was not on the roster. So you're literally a bunch of guys who weren't even around in camp. And Mac Jones was throwing to backups. And you're just kind of, patching this thing together. And at least on those first couple of drives last night, they looked like this was a real team. It's harder to sustain that over the course of time, just like Robert Saleh's got his work cut out for him. I mean, he's playing 5 or 6 rookies on that side of the ball, and lo and behold, it's Alfred Collins throwing one of the best punches you'll ever see. Initially hits Kyron Williams, if you noticed, in the face mask, and then still has the velocity to follow through and punch the football out. That was an unbelievable play by a young guy. Saul is one of the best that there is in this game. I guarantee that he's happy that we're talking about the game and not a post-game interaction like the week before, which, by the way, you want to know what was said there, Rich? Because I've talked to people who were around that back and forth with Saul and Liam Cohen. Literally, the conversation was, as Liam's walking by, Robert Saleh says, "Hey, it was a compliment." And Liam says, "I have nothing to say to you." Keeps walking. Saleh just is a little irked because he's brushing him off like that, and he just goes, "It was a compliment, dude." And that's where Liam turns back and goes full, Will Smith, keep my name out of your mouth. That's it. That was the entire interaction. I think that Saleh probably won't use the phrase sign stealing again, but Liam Cohen's doing a really good job. Saleh took the high road, said, "Hey, I really respect everything they're doing. The Jaguars are playing well." Saleh had those guys ready to go last night, man, against the tough Rams offense, and LA just never totally seemed to be in sync in that game.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the shedding the light on what was said between Saleh and Liam Cohen. That said, I still do plan to bring it up with Travis Etienne Jr. when he joins us the next hour. With the Jaguars taking on the Chiefs on Monday night, I've got Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. At some point, we will end this interview with me asking you the same question I ask you all the time, like, what's the team that everybody's blowing your phone up about when they're looking for information from you, or you're doing your due diligence with them? Last week, your answer was the Browns. That people are saying, what are the Browns doing? What are they thinking at the quarterback spot? Well, we have a better idea now. because Dillon Gabriel is going to get the start for the Browns on our network on Sunday in the first of 3 games in London for our network, Vikings and Browns. What's your reporting on why this happened and what the pecking order is and why in Cleveland, Tom?
Well, this is precisely why there was discussion in the league over the past couple of weeks about what the Browns' plan was, because you can only roll out Joe Flacco so many times and just see the offense performing at such a low level. The plan was always to have Dillon Gabriel play at some point this season. In a perfect world, he's not playing for the first time in an international game against a Brian Flores defense in London. That is not the way that you draw it up. It just was time. It just wasn't good enough. Flacco wasn't good enough. The offense wasn't good enough. Tommy Reese, the OC, said it the other day that they're looking for a spark here. So what do you get in Dillon Gabriel? You get a guy who, when the Browns were looking at him through the pre-draft process, they felt he was a lot like the guy who preceded him at Oregon, who Dillon Gabriel broke all of his records in terms of total touchdowns and total starts, which was Bo Nix. They got him at a discount relative to Nix, who went 12th overall in the 2024 draft, because Dillon Gabriel's 5'11", and not everybody wants a left-handed quarterback. The ball spins the wrong way. But they saw some of those similar types of traits in terms of the ability to see it and rip it. Dillon Gabriel, some people would knock him for an average arm, but they think that he can push the football down the field as well. But that processing ability, that willingness and ability to play on time, that's what Kevin Stefanski wants in his quarterbacks. That's what Joe Flacco is supposed to be, is a quick processor. He's always had, even though Joe's kind of this, I don't think a lot of people would describe him as an athletic quarterback. He's always had this arm twitch and this ability to see it and really get the football out quick. They think Dillon Gabriel can do some of those same types of things, with regard to, and I'm sure you're going to get to Shedeur Sanders. This is the logical way to approach this, Rich, just like it was the logical way to not say, hey, we're going to split the reps this week, have Flacco go out, and if he struggles, we're going to throw Dillon Gabriel in there in the second quarter. Yes, Dillon Gabriel took over in the fourth quarter in the proverbial garbage time the last couple of weeks, but they weren't looking at this as, let's just roll Dillon Gabriel out there and try to spark the team during the game. They wanted to give him a full week of practice, just like if and when it becomes Shedeur Sanders time. And I do believe at some point this season, they're going to want to see Shedeur Sanders. You'd like him to have a full week of practice too, not be elevated to the number 2 job, have no reps through the course of the week. All of a sudden, Dillon Gabriel gets nicked up on the first series and Shedeur's out there just having to kind of make it up for 60 or 70 snaps. You have to think of this globally too, Rich, with the Browns. They have 2 first-round picks next year in terms of their ability and the capital that they have, if they want to go and get a quarterback. Their pick, depending how much of a spark they get from Dillon Gabriel, it might be pretty high. Plus, they have the Jaguars pick as well. You want to find out, did we just get a guy at a steal in the middle of the 3rd round with Dillon Gabriel? Potentially, did we get a steal in the 5th round with Shedeur Sanders? They need to be able to answer at least some of those questions at a time that they feel like they've got a foundation to win in the future. Is this 2025 Browns team going to make a run, Rich, to the playoffs, to the Super Bowl this year? Never say never, but I wouldn't bet on it right now. They're really good on defense. They got a lot of things to figure out offensively. They don't have a true number 1 wide receiver on the team. They've had some moving parts on the offensive line, but they think this draft class, this rookie class they've got, between the 2 running backs, between Mason Graham, Harold Fannin Jr., Carson Schlesinger is a dude on that defense, even Isaiah Bond, who was an undrafted rookie wide receiver. All those guys, this can be the class. What they've got to show is, hey, we're making progress. We're headed the right direction. Let's experiment, try to win games, but find out with what we have in these quarterbacks, because if we don't feel like we have one, it's a good chance the Browns will be drafting one in 2026.
Well, and listen, I know you said I'm just going to leave Shedeur aside. To be honest with you, man, I mean, he is a 3rd string quarterback right now who's trying to I'm assuming get better, and I believe he is trying to get better, and microphones are being put in front of him, and he's listening to what pundits are saying about him and things of that nature. If he's not going to play on Sunday, then let's just leave it alone and see when he can cycle back around. I prefer to ask you about what's going on in Philadelphia. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. They're 4-0. A.J. Brown has got his locker circled because of the the tweet that he sent out about essentially turning the other cheek, if you will, or that might be a future scripture. I don't know that he's going to send out there. But here he is now having to explain why he's tweeting this, but not at anybody in particular. What's going on there? Is there anything there to this that this could signal the end of A.J. Brown at some point in Philadelphia, or not really? It's just stuff. Tom?
A.J. Brown's making $30 million this year. And through the first 4 games, he's got, I think, 13 catches for like 150 yards and 1 touchdown. That's not what you expect if you're the Eagles that you're getting from a $30 million receiver. It's certainly not what A.J. Brown thinks he should be getting. But he is such a tone setter for this team, Rich. And even if he's not having the productivity, the other things that he brings to the table, the way defenses have to account for him, the way that he can block, those are all things that the Eagles really value. And if you're trying to make a run, trading away one of your best players doesn't make a great deal of sense. You remember we were talking about A.J. Brown last year in the middle of the season. Why is he reading a book on the sideline? He obviously wanted to find the inner excellence. Wasn't that the book that he was reading on the sideline there?
Yes, sir.
But it also was kind of this not all that subtly coded message that like, hey, I got all the time in the world to go read. And then eventually you started getting the ball and the book became part of the gag. I take a similar type of a reaction to this when I saw that Bible verse that he put out there, which was along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing here, Rich, I'm not a Bible verse expert, but it was along the lines of when things are going badly, don't make a scene, basically shrug your shoulders and walk away. I don't think that means he's walking away from the Eagles. It means you're not going to hear A.J. Brown coming out and ripping teammates and ripping the coaches. That's just not who he is. But anybody in this position, besides the fact that he's making $30 million regardless of what he does, anybody would be frustrated in this position because the way that A.J. Brown is wired, and this goes back to Tennessee, is he thinks when he is involved, it helps the team win. He is not diva mode. You don't see him generally freaking out and screaming at people on the sideline and screaming at coaches. But yeah, he gets frustrated because he feels like if the offense is not coming my way, we're not as good of a team. And you saw that a couple weeks ago, Rich. When they got A.J. Brown involved in the second half of the game, it was like, oh, this is the Eagles we're used to seeing. In Tennessee, you go back, A.J. Brown per capita target was one of the most effective receivers in the NFL, but he was never like a 80, 90, 100 catch guy. It was, hey, he was the complement to what they were doing with Derrick Henry. He eventually got into a place in Philadelphia where he became a higher volume type of guy, but you still felt him in those games in Tennessee. I don't know that you're feeling him as much if you're a defense right now, even though you're having to account for him. I would take a wild guess, just like with the book last year, Rich, that as we move forward here over these next couple of weeks, you will see the Eagles and the opponent feeling A.J. Brown a little bit more, not because he called anybody out, but because it's the thing that makes the Eagles a lot better. I don't see it. We're still over a month away from the trade deadline. Weird things happen in this league all the time. If one of them were the Eagles, who are still, by the way, Rich, 4-0, despite all the criticism and the speculation about them, they're a 4-0 team. They want to go back-to-back. I'd really be surprised if that doesn't involve A.J. Brown.
All right, Tom, in the 2 minutes I have left, the team that's blowing your phone up because people are talking about them. What's the scuttlebutt? What's the team that everybody wants to know about from you?
I would say that team right now, Rich, is the Bengals. They were not a good offense when Joe Burrow was out there for the first game and a half. They've been terrible on offense in the 2 full games that they have played without Joe Burrow. And that is despite the fact that you've won before with Jake Browning. You know that he can play as much as any backup quarterback. If you get beyond 2 to 4 games, they're going to be challenged to sustain it. But you've seen that Jake Browning can play competent football in the NFL. You've got a ton of money in your wide receivers with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You've got tight ends. They've been one of the best teams in utilizing the tight ends for recent years. I don't think that this is a terrible Bengals offensive line that he's playing behind. And so you just ask yourself, what do they need to adjust? What teams in the league begin to wonder is, number one, could they trade for a quarterback? And obviously that's a question, Rich, that I ask on a weekly basis right now. There are some obvious candidates if they were to do it. I've heard nothing to lead me to believe that anything is moving down the road with Kirk Cousins, which makes sense because, there's multiple reasons the Bengals went with essentially a minimum salary, a guy who's an exclusive rights free agent as their backup quarterback, which is they feel like they're spending money at other positions. If they feel like they can win with Jake Browning, why would they put money into the position? Taking on a large chunk of Kirk Cousins' salary and, $10 million guaranteed in 2026 when you fully anticipate Burrow's going to be back, that might be asking a lot. Kirk Cousins has essentially played in this offense, going back to Kevin O'Connell and Zach Taylor. They came from the same tree as Sean McVay, who was his coach in Washington. It's all variation of the same system. So Kirk could probably get up to speed relatively quickly here. But taking on that money, giving up premier draft capital, this is a Bengals team, Rich, that since 1973 has acquired a grand total of 2 players in in-season trades in 52 years. It was a guy named B.J. Finney, an offensive lineman back in 2020, who was only part of a trade away of a player of Carlos Dunlap. And then last year they traded for Khalil Herbert because they were really shorthanded at the running back position after Zach Moss's injury. It would be outside of their MO. It's also outside of their MO to trade away players. But part 2 of this, Rich, would be if they continue to struggle, and if they're not going to go out there and trade for a quarterback, whether that's Kirk, whether that's Russell Wilson, whether that's Jameis Winston, and of those 3, I think Kirk is clearly the best fit. But if they don't do that and they continue to lose in a stretch where they've got the Lions on Sunday, they're at Green Bay the following week, and then they have Pittsburgh the week after that. 2-0 could quickly turn into 2-5 if they can't figure it out offensively. Are they getting close to a time where they'd be looking to be sellers at the trade deadline? Again, that is not the Bengals' MO. They don't make very many trades. We've seen them evolve a little bit in recent years, whether it's their contract structure, selling naming rights to the stadium, their aggressiveness, in various areas of roster building here. But there will be some players on their team, not Jamar Chase, not T. Higgins, but Trey Hendrickson on a 1-year deal. They would start getting calls about some of those players if they get into a mode where this season is going downhill. Again, we're not there yet. I still think it's more likely that they are trying to figure out, okay, we need to go get someone to compete. We're spending a ton of money on this roster. But if it goes the other way and you don't acquire a quarterback and the losses continue to mount, the Bengals could be in a position, Rich, where they are getting calls more than they're making calls, which is what people are speculating about right now.
Thanks for taking this call, Tom. Have a great weekend. We'll see you here in this chair when I'm in London next week. Thank you, sir. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.